Wargamers, Games Workshop came out with a preview for how close combat melee weapons are going to work in 8th edition 40k. So let's take a look at that preview, see what it's going to mean for how your army is going to play, and talk about some of the pros and cons of this new system. Before we do that though, I want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, if you like any of my other videos, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell as well. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming 8th edition videos or anything else that I put out. Alright, so let's get to it. They start off basically with a preview of power weapons, and I think this is a really insightful preview in terms of how they want melee weapons to work. Of course, they have the same stat line that range weapons do. They have strength, AP, the number of wounds that they're going to do, or the damage, and then certain abilities, so it's the same format. But power weapons got a big fine-tune, got a retunement. They got tuned differently. And the idea here is that in the past they saw power axes being the default choice and not a lot of variation in armies. And so they're trying to redo that and create a clear trade-off between the strength modifier of a weapon and an AP modifier of a weapon in a way that certain weapons are going to be better in certain situations, and therefore there's not one default choice that you're always going to want to choose. And so the preview basically showed us that power swords are going to be kind of the baseline. They're going to have no strength modifier and then have a -3 AP value. And of course these all do 1 damage to start with. And we'll get into how you can make them not do just 1 damage with force weapons actually. But power sword, strength as user, -3 AP. And then you can move away from that incrementally by adding +1 strength and reducing the AP to -2 with a power axe. And then a power maul is +2 to strength, but only -1 AP. And so you can see there's this trade-off between power swords and power mauls, and then power axes are kind of in between. And that actually, makes a lot of sense. Just and from an engineering standpoint, like you have a long blade that's like sharp and swingy, and you have a big like mass that's a maul, and if you put those two together you get an axe, right? Like, so it makes sense, of course, but you would expect that power swords would be the best option against infantry, things that have relatively low toughness but still have armor. Power swords are going to be the way to go, and that power mauls are going to be the thing that you want to do when the target has high toughness, and you really need to get a high strength attack in order to even hurt it. And that would be the way that this type of weapon system would work under the old rule set. But under the current rule set, or under the new rule set, under 8th edition, it's not quite that simple. So I spent probably more time than I should have in Excel doing some math hammer, and I evaluated which of these 3 weapons are going to have the greatest chance of delivering a wound upon a hit. And what I found was that between toughness 3 and toughness 5, so toughness 3, 4, and 5, we do see this pattern. We see this pattern where power swords are going to be the best against toughness 3, power axes are going to be the best against toughness 4, and power mauls are going to be the best against toughness 5. And this is assuming a 3-up save on the receiving model, and that is a Space Marine delivering the blow. And so, this framework that we've established is consistent. It works and applies to those models. But as soon as we go to toughness 6 with the 3-up save, power swords are the best option again. And then it goes to power axes and power mauls as we incrementally increase the toughness. And then once we get to toughness 12, power swords are the best again. So we're kind of going up the down escalator in our ability to harm units. And you kind of replicate that same pattern once we reduce the armor save of the receiving unit. So if we're looking at a 5-up save instead of a 3-up save, it basically just alternates between power axes and power mauls being the best choice depending on the toughness. And that makes sense because, of course, power swords have a -3 AP value. That's where their value's at. And so you're wasting that -3 AP value on things that only have a 5-up save anyway. So If you're dealing with low AP units, you're either going to want to go, or low armor units, you're going to want to go with an axe or a maul. But if you're going with high armor units, there's going to be this successional thing where, depending on the toughness, you're going to want a very specific weapon. And what that means overall is that the weapon choice is going to be very specific to the army that you're facing. Therefore, the best weapon choice is going to be very meta-specific. If you're expecting to see a certain type of unit, then you're going to want to bring a very specific type of weapon. And I guess this is the point, right? That there isn't a clear choice. There isn't a mathematical best answer, that it's going to depend on what you want to fight against. So in some ways this is good, but it also makes it challenging to build an army that will be an all-comers list, right? So I mentioned that we were going to talk about force weapons. Force weapons basically have this exact same set of rules. They have the same caveats, the same strengths, but they do D3 wounds now. There's no psychic test. There's nothing you have to do. They just do D3 wounds according to the preview. And so that's awesome. That means that force weapons hit harder, more consistently, which is good. They also gave us a preview of chainswords. Now, chainswords just do +1 attack. You get to strike again with a chainsword, and this is a way to differentiate the kind of generic troops that are close combat oriented that have chainswords from guys that are not close combat oriented, that just are, you know, punching or stabbing with knives or something like that. They're trying to give a little bit extra to chainswords, which is nice. It's not quite the cinematic narrative that I was looking for in terms of gameplay, like having +1 attack. Okay, I guess, I mean, that's better than nothing, but it's not super narrative. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense why a chainsword gives you +1 attack, but from a gameplay perspective, it's better. It's good. I like it. Sounds good. Power Fists now double the strength and have an AP -3 and then do D3 damage. Since initiative is gone, basically they're no longer unwieldy. You don't have to strike last, anything like that. They just have a -1 to hit, which is good. It's consistent with everything else that they do. This seems like a really good way of making this super awesome weapon, the Power Fist, still viable in close combat and still hurt a lot. So the D3 damage is really nice. I think it makes it more viable against multi-wound units, especially since we're having toughness values that are going to exceed 10. Having the ×2 multiplier here is going to be really important as well, especially on higher strength units. So if you put it on a strength 6, strength 8 unit, which I'm not exactly sure what that would be, but if you do, it's going to pay dividends. Overall, I think there's some nice balance to these weapons. There are trade-offs, although they can be context specific or have a limited range of trade-offs. I like that. I think it makes more weapons more viable in army lists, and it means that there's no clear answer for all situations, which means that we'll see variety in army lists. Granted, there are going to be choices that are better than others in certain situations, but it's not necessarily something that you'll be able to predict with enough accuracy that you'll only see one type of weapon on the table, which is cool. Big weapons are scarier and do more damage. They do more damage more consistently and more reliably. And it's also important because it makes it less likely that your opponent's going to be able to just walk away from you at the beginning of their phase. And this is actually something that has been confusing for some people. I've gotten several comments about this, so if you've commented, you're not alone. Don't feel like I'm picking on you. Several people have commented about how walking away from combat works and are confused about when that happens. It happens in the beginning of your opponent's next turn. They do it as part of their movement phase. It's not like hit and run currently where you do it at the end of the assault phase. If you charge a unit and you don't destroy that unit, they can just walk away from you at the beginning of their turn as part of their movement phase. They just walk away. It's not part of the assault phase. It's not anything else. They just walk away. And so if you want to make sure that unit's dead, the Power Fists, Chainswords, Force Weapons, they are going to help you do that, and they're going to be able to do that more effectively. So a boost to close combat, certainly, which is good. And The only downside here is that it's more difficult for you to know what to take, which again was the point, right? There's not supposed to be one correct answer. There's supposed to be multiple correct answers, and they've done that, I think, at least from a mathematical standpoint. Which, you know, in terms of how that actually manifests in the game, it may feel like your weapon choices are arbitrary or tedious. It may like really rack your brain to try to figure out what you should take. But maybe the answer to that is just relax a little bit. Pick what you like. Pick what sounds good, what sounds fun to play, and go with that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And of course, happy wargaming.